YouTube is a little bit nicer, kinder to me today because last week my video was cut off halfway through. If that happens again for whatever reason, I will just hop into another random live video. So just keep that in mind. This has now happened twice in the past 3 months, and it's never happened before. So I don't know what's going on. Today, we're going to deep dive into remote viewing. There's so much I want to say about it, but I want to really empower you today to explore remote viewing yourself because we can all do it. This is not a gift from being a fifth generational psychic. This is something that we are naturally given, something that we are naturally capable of. And I'm going to do something today that I've never done before, which is share my own personal SRV sessions. I'm going to share 2 today. These are actually my last 2 in the last 2 weeks. And the reason why I don't share these sessions is actually a safety concern. If you've ever been to, say, a coaching call or a Q&A, but mostly the coaching calls, you'll know that I'm legit. I am the real deal. I can definitely see some stuff that not everyone can see quite yet. And so there has been a concern of if I am able to prove myself, I'm seen as more of a threat. I'm not just some crazy alien lady, right? So I'm not going to deep dive into the proof today, but I did want to share with you some of my very recent SRV sessions. Now, before I share these sessions with you and then explain how you can remote view yourself, I wanted to mention that the remote viewing that I do versus the remote viewing that I am working with a teacher, trainer, mentor on right now is very, very different. So from a young age, I've been able to get out of my body, but it was really around the age of 18 where I was able to consciously leave my body and go wherever I wanted on this planet. And then eventually I realized I can go wherever I want off this planet, which is where it got really weird and also very cool. Just in the last, I would say, what has it been, 6 months, I decided to basically research one of the most credited remote viewing institutions and put my self-taught skills to the test to see if I could be a legitimate remote viewer. And so I've been working with a teacher from the Farsight Institute, and I didn't know anything about them. I literally just Googled the highest credited, remote viewing institute. I really resonated with whatever, them. And they haven't necessarily trained me or taught me. They've just been giving me blind targets. So this type of remote viewing is called SRV, or scientific remote viewing, which is based on military style remote viewing. So essentially, I'm only given 8 digits. And from that random series of 8 numbers, I am supposed to determine a time, a place, a location, a target, what's going on. Okay. So I sort of compare this sort of remote viewing like being blind. Like it literally feels like I am blind and I'm just like blindly feeling around. Yep, that's a subject. Yep, that's a structure, Whereas when I get out of my body and I do remote viewing, I can see the room, I can see colors, I can see everything. So it's very, very different, but it's been pretty cool because out of maybe 10 or 11 targets now, I've always been on target. I've been 10 for 10, which is pretty cool. So I'm legit. And not only am I legit, but I actually ended up taking an exam with the Farsight Institute and I passed with flying colors. And so technically I'm actually a certified remote viewer, which is also kind of badass. Once again, it's a piece of paper, but it's pretty cool that I was able to do that. So I'm going to share my last 2 remote viewing SRV sessions, scientific remote viewing sessions, with you. And then we're going to go into how I self-taught myself. We're not going to talk about SRV because it's way easier to teach yourself than to do this. All right. So, all right. So this right here is my second last. I did this last week, I guess the week before last. And if you were to take a look at this, you're like, okay, EA, like, really, that tells me absolutely nothing at all. But please keep in mind that I was given 8 random digits, and this is what, through a series of ideograms, and this is page 6, okay, of a lot of details and information and pieces. This right here is the description or depiction or target of the assassination of JFK. So yeah, so these are the people. This is the road. This is energetics, which is really where the bullet was fired from. And yeah, I don't know. It was pretty spot on. It was the most difficult remote viewing target that I have ever tried to see. It was extremely, extremely difficult. And afterwards, I realized that that moment in history was so shrouded in conspiracy that I believe that there was probably a lot of energetic protections around that moment. So yeah, that's, like I said, it's a very rudimentary drawing, but when you're talking about 8 digits leading you to anywhere in the world, and the fact that this was one of my most difficult sessions, it's not bad. It's not bad. All right. And then this past week on Thursday, this was my final target drawing, which was also really, really wild. As you can see, this was page 10. So I've got 9 other pages of information on this. This, my friends, turned out to be, and it was way easier than the assassination of JFK. It turned out to be Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. So I'm not going to show you a picture because I don't have a picture of that. But essentially, the only depiction of this moment in human history was a painting that was probably painted long after it happened. So this was subject A, which was obviously the main subject, which is Jesus. There's energetics. That's why there's a bunch of scribblies in him. Like, I literally saw energy radiating from this human, and I'm like, this is bizarre. And then I also saw this cord connecting him to source frequency. And then along that cord was a bunch of angelic beings, which was pretty cool. I saw this being standing on a rock in front of people, and he was talking, and then when I did a DMP or a CDMP, which is a collective deep mind probe, I could really feel the faith and the belief in the crowd. And it really felt like the man who was leading the crowd he felt like a conduit, like the higher powers were working through him to help the people. Obviously, once again, I mean, I was given a random 8-digit code and was spot on target there. My drawings aren't great, but the targets were there. So I wanted to share that with you and say I've been working really hard just to sort of get comfortable with, blind scientific remote viewing, which is really the only validation I've ever had, other than other remote viewers seeing exactly what I see. So it's been great. It's been great. But I will say I sweat and I'm nervous and like I literally am just, it's good to be in a place where you don't know. That's all I can say. And I've been in a place where I've been like actively uncomfortable with this style of remote viewing. And like I said, it's a good thing. Okay, so let's talk about some quick facts with remote viewing. So like I said and started off this video, anyone can remote view. Please keep that in mind, all right? This is not some sort of thing that you're born with. Well, you kind of are born with it, but yeah, we lose it along the way. I do want to talk really briefly about the difference between astral traveling and remote viewing. Now, I did look up the difference, and essentially, like, what came back from ChatGPT was that remote viewing is more like a psychic webcam. Like, you're still in your body, but you're essentially remote viewing that location, whereas astral traveling is more like teleporting yourself to the location, and you're really in the moment. And I don't really agree with that, because I have been like in the moment with remote viewing versus astral traveling. So the biggest thing with anything spiritual is try not to get caught up with semantics, right? Understand that I interchange remote viewing and astral travel all the time. Before, I used to sort of describe remote viewing as more earth-based, like earthbound targets, and astral traveling as more etheric, more extraterrestrial, more off-planet targets. But I do like to interchange both remote viewing and astral traveling. Either way, I feel like I'm getting out of my body, I'm exploring a targeted location area, and I'm able to do all of the things while I'm there, no matter what sort of label or container you put on it. So just keep that in mind. Um, Also, like children do it often. There are so many kids who get out of their body and travel around their house or like swoop down the stairs or like go outside. I remember being a kid and specifically like leaving my house, going above my street and like the street lights being on, everything being dark, and just like traveling around my neighborhood. So I think all psychic abilities are very common in children because they don't have the same layers and like sort of reality perceptions and rootedness or groundedness that we have. So I think that was just a fun fact. And then, oh yeah, I want to say that most of us are remote viewing or astral traveling, getting out of our body without even knowing it. I've had multiple people give me really weird and funny stories of them being like, yeah, so when I dream, like I'll be peering into people's windows and then it's like and then I wake up in the morning and it's like my neighbor across the street. And I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't a dream. Like you were probably just astral traveling around. Um, and like years ago, my mom told me, she's like, is it weird that when I get bored in conversations, I just float above my head? And I'm like, what do you mean, mom? She's like, yeah, sometimes I'm like checking out at the grocery store and I'm just like 2 feet above. And I'm like, what? Like, so what's really interesting about this is anything within this psychic world we're experiencing, but then we're just sort of programmed to pass it off. That was weird. Oh, I saw that shadow in the corner of my eye. Oh, must be a light trick. Oh, that's bizarre. So it's like we don't really like labels aren't good, but also sometimes we need labels to better describe and understand what we are doing. And then to say, let's deepen our experience with getting out of our body, or let's try and do it more consciously, right? So please be aware of the weirdness. And if you don't have anyone in your life that you can be like, whoa, like I just had this experience, or I just saw something I can't explain, or what have you, if you can't talk about it with anyone, then write it down in a book, right? The more we describe this, the more we go into it, the more we anchor it in this reality, and the more experience we have within it. There's like a saying, but I forget what it was. It was something like, when you start to observe the paranormal phenomena, it starts to observe back. And that's completely true. When I was a kid and I would see ghosts and spirits everywhere, I knew, like I caught on really quickly that if they saw you seeing them, they would come over and talk to you. So I would always like pretend not to see them because I never wanted to interact with them. And so it's the same goes. Like the more you observe yourself out of body, the more you observe what you're seeing that's beyond this realm, the more it's going to happen. All right. Okay. So how do you do it? How do you remote view? Cool. So the number one thing in order to remote view, it comes down to literally one thing and one thing only. And this thing is really tough. It is probably the most difficult asset to grasp onto in this world that we're living in. And the asset is focus. The only thing that you need in order to get out of your body and go anywhere you want in the entire universe and gain access to copious amounts of knowledge and information is focus. That is it, my friends. So how did I start remote viewing back in the day, especially when I was 18? I started remote viewing through deep states of trance meditation, and what brought me there was past life regression. I started doing past life regression on others around that time, and that's how I ended up making friends. But not everyone was able to be regressed, or it just took a very long time. So I asked myself, is it possible for me to regress myself into a trance-like state so that I can look at someone else's Akashic records? Lo and behold, it was absolutely possible. Not only was I able to look at other people's Akashic records, I was able to look at my own Akashic records. And then beyond that, I was like, I wonder what happened in ancient Greece or ancient Egypt. Wow, okay. In this state of meditation, I can go back to those places too. So what happens is when you sit down to quiet your mind and to focus, what happens is my back hurts, or it's too hot, it's too cold, I'm really hungry, I haven't eaten, my hip hurts, my I need to get to my next meeting, or my email is, popping off, or whatever. The only thing separating you from the entire universe and all of your psychic abilities is your focus. That's it. It's your awareness. Where are you putting your focus? Where is your mind? Right? Your mind is right here with me, which is really nice, but you might be scrolling or cooking or driving. We live in a world that is so entrenched in distraction. And the second you actually stop to focus on something beyond, outside this world, these five senses, is the second that you're able to tap into other places, other realms. Now, I will say that it's really important to have an intention or to have a target, okay? Because it's great to have focus. It's great to separate your focus from this physical moment and reality and then reconnect that focus to something else. I always call like remote viewing or channeling or even any psychic ability as like the universal Google. So I want you to imagine for a second that you have Google, like the search engine in front of you, and it's a blank spot. Great. You have now connected to universal Google. You've got practically all information in front of you. What are you going to do with it? What is your prompt? You've got ChatGPT in front of you. What is your prompt? What do you want? What are you looking for? Where do you want to go? Okay. That's it. I mean, Google and ChatGPT aren't going to give you any information if you don't initially put a prompt in. So you need your focus and you need your intention. And for me back then, my intention was past lives. That was my drive. And then I got abducted and my intention was aliens. Anything and everything aliens and off planet, and who are they and what are they doing here and why are they interested in us? My curiosity was my driving force to get me to the information. And so no matter if my back hurt or my stomach was hungry or it was cold, it didn't matter. I was able to let go of every single sensation in order to get to what I really wanted. My drive, my curiosity, my focus was more centered, more aligned than any other distraction that this planet could give me. And I think that that's really our biggest downfall, is distraction, right? The thing that's pulling us from motivation is, what do we really want? And do we want it bad enough to let go of our physical sensations? There's a word called equanimity, okay? And I actually have it tattooed right here on my wrist. And equanimity is essentially the practice of observing all sensation without reaction. And that is the place that we need to be in our own bodies, in order to be able to navigate the quantum realm. It's a separation between your conscious mind and your physical body. So where do you get started? Meditation is obviously a really great start, which is such an eye roll because it is the crux of all spiritual practice, right? But I would also highly recommend past life regression. You can do a self-guided past life regression just on a YouTube video, or you can find a practitioner. I have a really great practitioner that's a good friend of mine, Trina. So if you're interested, just email support@elizabethapril.com and we'll send you her contact info. And then I also recommend lucid dreaming. For me back then, meditation, deep states of trance meditation, along with my focus, my curiosity, and practicing lucid dreaming really allowed me to get into those other realms. And yeah, of course, I doubted it at first. I thought I was making things up or projecting. And then it just got so weird that I'm like, there's no way my 19-year-old mind is going to be coming up with this. Like, where would my mind get this information? Like, there's just no way. So you eventually learn to trust, but it took me a while, okay? So just know that that's okay. Those are all normal stages and steps. And lucid dreaming is so cool because all of a sudden you get to a place where you're looking at your hands and you're flicking the light switches and you're thinking to yourself, am I awake right now or am I dreaming? What is real reality? And I mentioned this before that, with AI, we don't know anymore, right? It's going to get to a point where you don't know if I'm real on the screen talking to you or if I'm just some AI bot. And that's going to come really soon. Not that we're going to do any AI stuff, but it's wild. It's going to really make you question where you're at. And when we get to that point, we get into a state of superposition. When we get to a point of equanimity, of observing without reaction, we get to then choose where we want to end up. We get to choose the timeline that we want to end up in. That's a 0-point frequency right there. That's pretty powerful. A couple of other things. Okay, lucid dreaming. Okay, quantum sensing. Quantum sensing is really cool. What we can actually do in these other realms when we're out of our body, we can utilize our 5 senses in these other realms. This is something that I didn't fully understand until I started scientific remote viewing. Like, I can feel the air, I can feel the temperature, I can smell smells, which is really interesting, sometimes not great. And you can like feel water, like it's pretty wild what you can do. So you can actually just move through the world in your astral body and sense things with your 5 senses. And then I do want to mention just one more thing with astral battles and missions. There are quite a few of us who are being pulled into the astral world when we are sleeping. And the reason why is because that's when DMT or dimethyltryptamine is really active in our brains. That's during those deep REM states of sleep. And what happens is when we're sleeping, we're essentially forced into a state of equanimity. We're forced into a state where our conscious mind is still online, or I guess our subconscious mind is online, and our bodies are sleeping. So that separation state is very natural. So when we hop into dreams, I truly believe they are dream dimensions, and that is where we astral travel. And sometimes we are pulled into things like astral battles or different missions in the astral realms, which is pretty cool. If you guys want to know more about astral traveling and remote viewing, I do have a workshop. It is called the Astral Travel Workshop. All right. It's very affordable. It's on the website. So go check that out. And when I asked, I went onto Instagram and I asked about like, what do you want me to talk about? Like, what do you want this live video to be? And a bunch of you said, like, talk to us about remote viewing. If you want to know more about my own remote viewing experiences, conspiracies, reptilians, celebrities, like really everything across like mental health stuff, starseed stuff, go to my website and go to the video search option and you can search through thousands of videos there, all right? So go check out the Astral Travel Workshop if you want to know more, but also just go scan through my videos. Like just this past month, I think actually in March, I did a HARP remote view and I did an Antarctica remote view just to see what is going on with HARP, what's going on with Antarctica. So if you want to know more about what I do on the back end and all of the brand new content I release that I don't feel comfortable releasing publicly, go to my website, just put in a couple of keywords and you'll find so much stuff because a lot of you are recommending videos that I've already done before and you can find them all on my site. All right. And that's it. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and definitely share this with other people who are curious about stepping into their remote viewing abilities. Bye for now.